Armature Studios is an interesting Texas-based studio that you might recall for their work on Recore, Unfinished Swan, and that cancelled Mega Man first-person shooter. Their newest game, Where the Heart Leads, drops the action genre for a more story-driven adventure game with an interesting isometric view that makes for a unique presentation. But before we jump into this review, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on my reviews. Only 10% of you watching are subscribed, so let's get those numbers up. You can also join my Discord server for free with the link in the description. The real pull of this game is of course its story. It begins on a stormy night on a countryside farm. The abrupt thunderstorm wakes up Whitney Anderson and his family right as a giant sinkhole opens up in the middle of the farm. To the family's devastation, their dog Casey falls into the hole, and Whitney springs into action trying to save them. Of course, it's not so easy, as propelling yourself down a giant sinkhole is no easy feat. Luckily, he makes it and is able to save the dog, but not before the makeshift elevator snaps, dropping him into the deepest and darkest crevices of the planet. It's there that he quickly realizes that not all is what it seems, as he finds himself in a time loop, repeating parts of his past that can completely alternate his present. As he journeys through the various memories of his girlfriend, family, and friends, you'll have to choose how to react to these situations and possibly change the outcome of the story. It isn't just some fake smoke gag either. Very minor changes do in fact change the outcome of the story in major ways, as opposed to how other games have advertised to do the same, only to funnel through toward one type of ending. With that said, this lengthy story reaches up to about 12 hours, with some mutual friends of mine saying it's taken them about 20 hours. Whichever the case, both of these numbers are simply too long for this story being told and how it's being told. It drags to unnecessary length, ultimately hurting the one thing it does well, its writing. Where its writing is the strong suit for this title, its gameplay is ultimately where it begins to fall apart. Where the Heart Leads is a simple and rather easy game. Like most story-driven adventure games, you don't have any hazards or are at risk of dying. You simply are just walking through scenarios and make some choices as more of the story unfolds before you. In the many memories you'll relive throughout the game, you're given opportunities to make choices. Some may seem small and others might seem more impactful. Regardless of what importance you think it might have, everything has a cause and effect, and depending on your answers, your game can end completely differently from mine. While I love that approach to its storytelling, it wasn't enough to compel me for the entire run of the adventure. Throughout my time playing, I felt myself consistently pulled back and forth between loving that sense of consequence that feels so rare in games lately, and the odd design choices with presentation. Now, I don't hate isometric design games, but man, it does not work with this title. The wide view map makes it challenging to make out a lot of the interactable objects in the world. That goes without mentioning that the NPCs appear as these transparent-like figures, only making the issue worse. Somehow not making them so visible and unique also dwindled part of the more emotional, impactful scenes in the story. I even ran into a bug as my first impression. Upon starting, I was presented with the isometric view of the map and nothing else. I couldn't move, just pan the camera, zoom in and out. It wasn't until I finally restarted the game after 10 minutes of trying to figure out what the heck I was supposed to do that I realized the game was just being buggy. There might be a worthwhile story here that's worth experiencing, it's just not accompanied by equally worthwhile gameplay. I sort of hinted at it throughout the gameplay section, but I find myself conflicted with the art style here. While I enjoyed the look and style of the art, I don't think the isometric camera was the way to go. In execution, it's clunky to control, feels awkward to navigate, and sure, it's pretty, but not enjoyable to play. Playing my PS4 review copy on PS5, I didn't really notice any performance hiccups outside of the odd glitch at the start of the game. Outside of that, I do wish that the memories we got to relive featured some more unique designs to the NPCs. I wasn't the biggest fan of the stop-motion-like design holograms representing these vastly important moments to the protagonists. Where the Heart Leads has a nice and somber collection of music that ultimately helps make some of the more impactful moments of the story. What feels like an odd choice by design was the lack of voice acting. There's a lot, and I mean a lot, of written dialogue, some great and some boring, but ultimately I found myself failing to pay attention at times. It picks up a lot more towards the final act, but I couldn't help but think how much better the story would have been with some solid voice work. Where the Heart Leads is a slow, long, and at times monotonous story-driven game that feels like it nails its writing for most of the time, but nothing else. It truly pains me because I absolutely love the importance of consequence this game achieves, so much better than other games that attempted to or falsely advertised to do the same. Nevertheless, it drops the ball when it comes to gameplay and presentation choices that ultimately make playing this game more of a challenge than it ever needed to be. Thank you very much for watching my review. If you found it informative or entertaining, then please consider subscribing. I make reviews for all the latest AAA and indie games. Let me know what your favorite story-driven indies are in the comments down below, and if you haven't already, I highly recommend If Found by Annapurna Interactive. It's one of my favorites. Anyway, stay tuned because later this week I'll be dropping my review of Skyward Sword HD for the Nintendo Switch, but until then, I'll see you in the comments down below.